Good morning. Welcome to day 2 of our conference, Defining a 21st Century Education for a Vibrant Democracy. I'm so pleased to see so many of you come back today, those of you who were here yesterday. We had a wonderful day yesterday, a great interactive crowd all day long for the sessions, and I so appreciated the ideas that came through yesterday and the deep concerns about where higher education is going in a general sense, but also right here at the University of Montana. We had a wonderful array of keynote speakers yesterday. Those of you who were here, I think, enjoyed them very much. We had panel discussions as well, and then open conversation throughout the course of the day. I was talking to Nathan Lindsay and Rebecca just a few minutes ago, the co-chairs of this conference, and they've been keeping track of the to-do list, and it's getting longer by the minute, and I'm sure we'll have a few more items as a result of today's sessions. Last night we started the conversation about workforce by having a panel of folks right from here in Montana and from the university, and that was a very good, lively discussion as well. And so we're going to continue that theme as we begin this morning's sessions. I am so excited to have our keynote speaker today, and I'm going to call on our Lieutenant Governor in just a moment to give a proper introduction. But I want to make a comment or two about Secretary of Labor Tom Perez. Tom and I met a few years ago under pretty difficult circumstances. Tom was at that time with the Department of Justice, and as I think all of you in the room know, we had a little interaction with the Department of Justice starting a few years ago and continue that interaction as well today. So we met under challenging circumstances, but it became obvious to me right away that Mr. Perez is a man of integrity, extreme professionalism, and a man of action. And he was very concerned about us here in Missoula and at the University of Montana, and I appreciated that a great deal. I've come to know him even more in that regard over the last couple of years as he's made the transition to the Department of Labor. I'm extremely grateful, Tom, that you have agreed to come here and speak with us at the University of Montana, accepting our invitation to do so. I'm very much looking forward to the wisdom that you will impart to us from your current perspective at the Department of Labor. So at this point, I'm going to call on Lieutenant Governor Angela McLean to make an introduction. I've known Lieutenant Governor McLean for several years now, dating back to her time on the Montana Board of Regents. She is a tireless advocate for public education, both at the K-12 level and the higher education level, and an advocate for the people of Montana. She is a tremendous friend of the University of Montana as well. Since being appointed Lieutenant Governor in February of 2014, as part of Governor Bullock's Main Street Montana project, she has visited all of Montana's campuses, all of our Indian reservations, and met with leaders, community members around the state, talking about education, listening to educators talk about the concerns and the opportunities before us, and helping to enact those opportunities and take advantage of the wonderful collaborative spirit here in the state of Montana. She developed something called Montana Smart Schools, an initiative of her office with the goal of reducing energy usage in schools and saving schools money. She herself is an educator, a classroom teacher, spent many years teaching in Anaconda, and has a personal passion for education and for motivating young people. I've had the opportunity to see her students in action at a number of events here on campus and other places, and I'll tell you what, she knows how to inspire young people and how to get them to think about their own futures so effectively. We're very proud to have her here. She holds a bachelor's degree from the University of Montana Western and a master's degree from right here at the University of Montana in Missoula. And you will find no more avid Grizz fans than Lieutenant Governor Angela McLean. Lieutenant Governor, please welcome.
You are their hope, were the words that were spoken by today's keynote speaker, less than 2 weeks ago to an audience of public school teachers in the great state of Maryland. As I dove through everything that I could get my hands on so that I could be adequately prepared to introduce to you the Honorable, the esteemed Secretary of Labor today, I came across a number of very intriguing and interesting pieces. But what stayed with me most was that we have a United States Secretary of Labor who gets it. He understands the role that public education plays. He understands that public education is truly the great American equalizer. And I, Mr. Secretary, am truly honored and humbled to have this privilege to get to introduce you this morning to my esteemed colleagues and friends here on the campus at the University of Montana. Before I do, I want to signal my heartfelt appreciation to President Engstrom, to Dr. Brown, to Ms. Powers, to Penny, and to all of your team for your vision in making sure that we could have this magnificent conversation around a 21st century education right here in Missoula. Profound and visionary is what I would call your leadership. Thank you so very much for letting me play a small part in it. Additionally, I'm joined by colleagues that I've known for a very long time, like Dr. O'Brien and Dr. Wolf. Thank you for your leadership and for your efforts on behalf of student learning here in Missoula and in Great Falls and across the state of Montana. And my good friend, Mr. Cotter, from the United States Attorney's Office. It's wonderful to be here with you. Please give my regards to your beautiful bride, the Honorable Justice Cotter, if you will. Commissioner Busey, thank you very much for your remarkable visionary leadership on behalf of Montanans who need a remarkable visionary leader who understands, like our United States Secretary of Labor, that the conversations begin and end with the students that we teach in our classrooms and the teachers and the staff who work with them every single day. It's been an honor and a privilege to get to know you and to get to work with you. It's wonderful to be here with you too, Regent Albrecht. I thank you for your commitment to public service and your commitment to the 47,000 plus students across our campuses in the Montana University system. The Montana University system is leading the way across the country, and it's not by accident, it is by design. And you, Madam Regent, are such a key player as a part of that design. That education in Montana should happen by design rather than by chance. We have remarkable leaders like Vice Chair Albrecht and Commissioner Christian, who could not be with us here this morning. But if you, who are his colleagues, would please tell him that the LG gave him a shout out at this wonderful conversation. To all of my friends who are the faculty and staff here, it is always humbling for me to get to stand in your midst. For you folks provide an opportunity for students who may not have ever had an opportunity before. You open doors for students who may never have had anyone open a door for them before. It is not just about the reputation that gets our students in the door here at the University of Montana and across our campuses in the entire Montana State University system, but what it is about more than that is the heart and soul that each of our faculty and staff bring with them when they come to campus every single day so that they stay here and so that they graduate from one of our institutions and they leave here better than when they got here. And you folks in Montana know how to do that better than anyone that you will find anywhere. And I can attest to that because I have stood beside each and every one of you in the trenches. And it gives me great pleasure, and I feel so very privileged to tell you that we have the Honorable and esteemed United States Secretary of Labor who is with us today, who gets and understands the profound work that you do so magnificently every single day. And as I delved into his bios, as I delved into every news clip that I could find about you, Mr. Secretary, and there are many, a couple of themes stood out to me very clearly. One is that this man has a never-ending commitment to public service, from the Montgomery County Council to the post that he currently holds today. He exemplifies what I truly believe is what is symbolic for all of our public leaders across Montana and across the country. And that is what Margaret Mead once stated, and that is that we should never doubt that a group of thoughtful citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. And you, Mr. Secretary, exemplify that with the work that you do and the passion with which you have done it every single day. Additionally, this man is a support for labor. He comes to us with an understanding that we need to provide support for those who are in the trenches doing the good work on behalf of the students that we get to serve every single day. And whether it is advocacy for those who are members of associations or labor unions in Maryland or across the country, our labor secretary understands that in the classroom someone needs to have the backs of the teachers who do the job that they do so very well. And once again, the labor secretary gets it, and he delivers. And finally, perhaps one of the most significant pieces of his biographical information that stood out for me was his commitment to protecting civil liberties for all. He is a man who truly understands that an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And to that end, whether it was at the local, state, or national level, our esteemed Secretary of Labor has fought for folks to ensure that they have the equal protection that our framers intended when they wrote the 14th Amendment to the Constitution and made it one of the Civil War amendments. He's fought tirelessly for folks with HIV and AIDS, members of the LGBTQ community. He's fought tirelessly for public employees and for retirees. He gets it. He understands what we need to do in society to ensure that we have a better society and a better tomorrow than the day we have today. And finally, Mr. Secretary, it was impressed upon me that you value perhaps what more of us need to value more every single day. And we need to put our hearts and our souls into the families that we get to raise. He's the father of 2 daughters, the oldest, who is a sophomore at Brown, and the youngest child, who's an 8th grader, and he plays basketball. And the esteemed secretary makes time to coach his son at basketball. This is a guy, ladies and gentlemen, who just gets it. I think he understands us. And I know that when I read his bios and I read his stories, they resonated with me. And this is a guy that I knew that I could count on, and a guy that I knew and know that now and down the road, he'll be there for you, he'll be there for me, and he'll be there for the students that we get to serve. Nominated by President Barack Obama and sworn in on July 23rd of 2013, Thomas E. Perez is the nation's 26th Secretary of Labor. He is committed to making good on the promise of opportunity for all, giving every working family a chance to get ahead, and putting a middle-class life within reach of everyone willing to work for it. To accomplish this, Perez's priorities for the department include ensuring a fair day's pay for a fair day's work, connecting ready-to-work Americans with ready-to-be-filled jobs through skills programs like registered apprenticeship and on-the-job training, promoting gender equality in the workplace, ensuring that people with disabilities and veterans have access to equal employment opportunity, and insisting on a safe and level playing field for all American workers. That 14th Amendment, my friends. Perez's maternal grandfather was the ambassador to the United States from the Dominican Republic in the 1930s, until he spoke out against his home country's brutal dictator and was declared non grata. His Dominican-born parents eventually settled in Buffalo, New York, where Perez was born and raised. His father served in the United States Army and worked for many years at the VA hospital in Buffalo, instilling in his son a dedication to public service, where the younger Perez has spent his entire career. Most recently, Perez was Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights at the United States Department of Justice, leading the same division where he worked for a decade as a career federal employee beginning in the late 1980s. From 2002 until 2006, he was a member of the Montgomery County Council. He was later appointed Secretary of Maryland's Department of Labor, Licensing, and Regulation. He was a law professor for 6 years at the University of Maryland School of Law and was a part-time professor at the George Washington School of Public Health. He received a bachelor's degree from Brown University in 1983. In 1987, he received both a Master's of Public Policy and a law degree from Harvard University. He lives in Maryland with his wife, Anne, and their 3 children. Please join me in welcoming the Honorable Secretary of Labor of the United States of America, Perez.
Good morning. That was way too kind. And for those of you who are wondering, my parents moved to Buffalo from the Dominican Republic because the weather was very similar. So I want to put that to rest right now because I know you were probably thinking about that. It's great to be here. It's great to be back here. See a number of familiar faces. A former colleague of mine, Keith Kelly, who is right in the front row there. Keith was our Assistant Secretary for Veterans Affairs. Keith has worked in Montana government. Keith has done so many things. Keith is a Vietnam veteran, and what he did was make sure that veterans who did so much to serve our nation, when they come home, we take care of them. So Keith, thank you for a lifetime of service. He's now enjoying a wonderful retirement. Son of Red Lodge, Montana. Mr. Cotter and I, Mike Cotter is a pro. He and his wife are, I think, Montana's power couple. And he does great work, and I have gotten to know him very well. A man of integrity, a man of professionalism, a man of accomplishment, and a guy I will always call a friend. Please give my regards to the governor, and you and the governor do great things. I read all about the Main Street Montana project, for instance. It's a great project, and thank you for your leadership. And I would be remiss before I talk about what I've come to talk about if I didn't have a chance to say a word about your president. I'm an unabashed fan of President Engstrom. Unabashed. You know, when we first met, it was undeniably a tense situation. You know, my holiday card list did not get long in my old job because you're usually going into communities where there are challenges. President Engstrom didn't create the challenges. He walked into it, but he didn't walk away from it. He owned the problem, even though he didn't create the challenges. And he understood that it's always the right time to do the right thing. And that's what I saw from the outset. And I've worked with a lot of folks who, in times of challenge, sometimes don't do the right thing. President Engstrom always did the right thing. His North Star was always, how do I treat my students correctly? How do I build a campus culture that is inclusive and productive? And, you know, frankly, I get calls from time to time from folks in other universities saying, we got some issues. You have any advice? And I tell them, call President Engstrom, because you know what? He is a leader. And I think y'all know that already, but I thought it bore repeating. Is that the right word from the English? I think it bears repeating. And I just want to say thank you, because this community is blessed to have you as their president. That's my opinion. And, you know, as a former faculty member, I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you to all the faculty and administrators who are here today. None of you get rich in these jobs. Or if you do, Mike Cotter is right here, and maybe we need to make a referral to the U.S. Attorney. But you know what? The non-monetary rewards are priceless. Education, my parents always taught me, is the great equalizer. It's the single greatest source of social mobility that our nation has ever known. And you do so much to empower, inspire our next generation. I want to say thank you. And I love being on campuses. You can see the hop in the step of students. You can see the vibrancy of this campus. It's palpable when you're around here. And the commitment that you show day in and day out, faculty and administration, is really just remarkable. And I want to say thank you, because this conference is a real testament to the fact that you're constantly striving to get better. You're asking all the right questions. I was looking at the brochure. You know, how do you prepare people for the jobs of tomorrow? How do you prepare people to be tomorrow's leaders? How do you prepare people to participate in our democracy? And we need a little help on that one in Washington, by the way, if you haven't read the memo. You know, and those are the things that you're talking about. And you know, the punchline for me is you can do all three of those things and then some. And I would observe that you have to do all three of those things and then some. You have to adapt, because the one constant in life is change. And higher ed has to change along with our changing society. And I have a wonderful privilege day in and day out of working at the Department of Labor. I often refer to us as the Department of Opportunity, because our job is to help create more opportunity for more people, to help businesses grow, and to help build an America of shared prosperity, an America where everybody who wants to work hard and play by the rules can realize their highest and best dreams. And it's important, as we sit here and reflect in this very, very important conference, you know, where we are, where we've come, and where we need to go. You know, when the president took office, the unemployment rate was moving toward 10%. We now have a national unemployment rate of 5.1%. We've seen 67 consecutive months of private sector job growth to the tune of 13.2 million jobs. When you, when in the depths of the recession, we had roughly 7 job seekers for every job. We now have 1.4 job seekers for every job. I went to law school because I was bad at math. But you don't need to be a math whiz to figure out you'd rather compete against one person than against 6 people for a job. There are 5.4 million open jobs right now as we speak. That's the second highest number since we have collected this series at the Bureau of Labor Statistics. 5.4 million jobs. I was with the Vice President recently, and he is fond of reminding all of us that America is a magnet for investors. Our kids are not going to be talking about outsourcing. We're going to be talking about insourcing. And don't take my word for it. Don't take the Vice President's word for it or the President's word for it. Study after study. Get online and look at A.T. Kearney. Get online and look at the Boston Consulting Group. They do studies asking businesses, you know, are you bullish about the future? Do you want to bring some of your business back home? And business leaders repeatedly say that the United States of America is the best place in the world to invest. That's what they're saying. We have an undeniable wind at our back, not only in America, but here in Montana. Your unemployment rate in September, 4.1%. That is enviable, down from 7.4% in the spring of 2010. Over the next 10 years, you're poised to add over 50,000 jobs if our data is correct. And these are good middle-class jobs: healthcare, construction, leisure, hospitality, professional and business services. You know, the thing that I hear most frequently in my travels, and I hear it here in Montana, when I talk to business leaders, is, Tom, I'm bullish about the future. I want to grow my business. And my biggest challenge is that too many of the folks walking through the door don't have the skills to do the jobs of today and tomorrow. That's the most frequent conversation I have anywhere I go in America. And you know what else I have? And conferences like this are times when we have to be honest. I frequently hear concerns and criticisms of higher ed, especially, frankly, four-year higher ed, because I hear the criticism that, you know what, I see that somebody's got a diploma in a certain major, but then I hire that person and he or she doesn't have the core competencies to do the work. And that, to me, is a clarion call for conferences of this nature, to ask ourselves. And your Main Street Montana initiative is very much designed to address that critique, because the sector strategy approach that you take, the partnership, you know, you're getting out and you're making house calls to businesses. because one of the key elements of an effective workforce strategy is that we have to understand what the demand needs are. You know, the old model, I used to call it train and pray. You know, we train people, we educate people, and then we pray that there are jobs out there for people and what we just trained them in. That's yesterday's paradigm. Today's paradigm is we have to be demand-driven. We have to understand what some of the needs are. And in the course of this, and having spent a lot of time in higher ed, I understand that underlying tension that sometimes exists. Well, you know, I'm not simply, I'm not just a deliverer of trade skills. I'm an institution of higher learning. And I think step one is we have to recognize that it's a false choice to suggest that we're either training people for the jobs of tomorrow or we're training people to be critical thinkers. You know what? The need for critical thinking is constant, and our workforce needs both critical skills and critical thinking. We're more aligned than ever with our partners in the industry to identify the critical skills and tailor our training programs to deliver them. But the need for critical thinking is constant. No matter where you are or what color someone says your collar is, America will always need independent thinkers, questioners, and leaders who can adapt, not just to drive innovation in individual workplaces, but to keep our democracy strong and vibrant. We had breakfast this morning, a number of us, and I was telling the story of when we did a sector strategy in the biotech sector when I was the Maryland Labor Secretary. And one of the presenters said, in order to thrive in the biotech sector, you will need to reinvent yourself 3 or 4 times during the course of your career. And I was asked to comment on that paper that was delivered. And I said, I have one amendment. I would strike the term in the biotech sector and insert in every sector. You will have to reinvent yourself because this is not your father or your mother's Oldsmobile. The world of working for 30 years and getting that defined benefit pension, the pen and the party, you know, those days are kind of in the rearview mirror. And so we have to be mindful of that. And I think it's really important is we have to understand that there are false choices, and we should reject those false choices. We see artificial barriers between these pathways and naysayers who set up these false choices. We have to either focus on community colleges at the expense of 4-year colleges or trade schools, or we can't do this, we can't do that, we shouldn't do apprenticeship because we need to do something else. We have to build a superhighway of opportunity in which people can do it all and then some. And I'm seeing that happening across the country. There are many, many routes for people to punch their ticket to the middle class. And there's no one-size-fits-all approach. And it's fitting because I think you get it here in Montana. And one of the many assets that you bring to the table is that here in Missoula, you made the smart choice decades ago to co-locate a community college right here at this university. That was really smart. And whoever thought of it, thank you. Because you know what? More states ought to do this. I'm a huge fan of community colleges. They are an engine of innovation and partnership and opportunity. They're an engine of upward mobility for so many first-generation higher ed students. And you know what? What you have done here through your articulation agreements is way ahead of the curve, and you should be proud of that. And as you think here, you know, these conferences are opportunities to get off the dance floor and onto the balcony. As you look down, you should be thinking, you know, that's a good thing we got going. So how do we expand those articulation agreements? How do we articulate further with our 7 tribal institutions so that we can continue our leadership in helping the next generation of Native Americans get access to their dreams and hopes? And so many things that you're doing here, I think, are remarkable. And so that's why I come here first to say I applaud your efforts, because you have come up with a great way to create more pathways to opportunity, not fewer. And your online offerings are tremendous for people who live miles away from a physical campus. And the commitment of President Engstrom to certificate and other programs that you stack one on top of the other. I know from talking to some of my friends, and they are my dear friends in higher ed, you know, there's some folks who don't like that in 4-year higher ed. They say, no, that's not really our role. I'm here to say, you know what? You've got to be responsive to your communities. And, you know, for a lot of folks, you know, they frankly got family responsibilities. They can't take 4 years off and do the traditional path. We got to take the worker and the Montanan where we find them. And so your deftness, your alacrity in understanding that a certificate program might be that first step in, that is really smart. And that reflects, I think, a real understanding of the pulse of Montanans who want to upskill. They want to get better. They want to punch their ticket to the middle class. But they've got family responsibilities, and they can't do it all at once. The year I started college was the same year my mother started college because my dad died when I was a kid. She was busy raising kids, and her last kid, me, was the hardest one to raise. And so finally, when I got the heck out, she was able to go to college, and she had an 8-year journey through college for a host of reasons. And so I understand that education is indeed lifelong, and pathways are not linear. But you know what? You have figured that out. And that the issue of alignment is equally critical. By aligning your programs with the needs of Montana industry, whether it's healthcare, advanced manufacturing, you can give students the confidence that the skills they are acquiring perfectly suit the jobs that are available now. And you know, that is so critically important because you have a tremendous number of assets here. And you know what? I see, and I had breakfast with some of the folks who are running your TAC programs, and you have done a remarkable job taking DOL dollars, and these are competitive dollars. And you have gotten, and you've competed for these dollars, and you have put them to use, not only in providing opportunities for people to punch their ticket to the middle class, but to effect systems change, to build an ecosystem of partnership and opportunity, businesses engaged, college and educators engaged, nonprofit partners engaged. You've gotten rid of that, the train and pray model. And you've really put in place the partnership model that is bringing home the bacon. And so, you know, the Missoula College leading the consortium that received a $15 million TAC grant to help Montanans gain skills and credentials for healthcare jobs. Montana Healthcare provides workforce training in high-growth, high-skill health professions, including nursing, emergency service technicians, and other health professions. These are career pathways that cross the divide between 2- and 4-year colleges. You get that first certificate, you stack another one on top of another one, and the next thing you know, you have a PhD. And I've met people who are doing exactly that. And you can do that. And I've met people in the apprenticeship context. And by the way, Missoula College is also a $25 million grant recipient for a grant that's led by Great Falls College, again, dealing with a statewide approach to workforce challenges in advanced manufacturing and the energy industries. Rev Up Montana has 13 participating colleges across the state, and because of your size, you do a lot of excellent distance and online learning. It's designed to reach more students in rural areas. And obviously, one of the key principles of success here is you've got to take the job seeker where you find them, literally, physically, and where they are in their career pathway. And so you know what? You're doing a lot of great things, and you've taken apprenticeship very seriously. I always refer to apprenticeship as the other college, except without the debt. And you know, what is it about debt that we like? You know, not much, as the parent of soon-to-be 2 college students. I've seen apprenticeship in my travels to the UK, to Germany, and to Switzerland. You know, it's not hard to figure out why the youth unemployment rate in Switzerland is 3.2%. And the youth unemployment rate here in the U.S. is much, much higher, still double digits. That's because they have built options, and all their options have stature. When you choose those apprenticeships, people understand their importance, and they understand that they are permeable. So the CEO of Zurich, an insurance company, a Fortune 100 company, he started out as an apprentice. And he moved through his journey, and now he's the CEO of a pretty large company. And so these are the types of things that we need to do at scale, because we really have some work to do if we're going to truly construct this opportunity superhighway for everybody. And there are ways to do this. One example of something that we're doing to help facilitate the development of apprenticeship is something that we call the Registered Apprenticeship Community College Consortium. Again, what it is that a lot of people who complete an apprenticeship program are actually 2/3 of the way through their associate's degree. And so what we have gotten, and we now have over 200 community colleges who have signed up. So when you complete your IBEW apprenticeship, and I've sat in that classroom, And the one thing I know, I've sat in it 2 or 3 times, I had no idea what was on the blackboard. It was really complex stuff they were learning. And so what this rack is doing is articulating those credits so that you go to a community college and you're already 2/3 of the way there. And so this is the type of partnership and innovation that we are doing. The president earlier this year announced the most significant apprenticeship investment in our nation's history. $175 million to 46 grantees across the country who are expanding and developing apprenticeship in high-growth industries. And it's not just growing apprenticeship, it's about extending the opportunity to more people. And we call it at DOL the double and diversify approach. And what we're doing is expanding the apprenticeship model to other sectors. When most people think of apprenticeship, they think of the traditional skilled trades. They hold the patent on the original apprenticeship model. But that patent has expired, and so others are able to get the advantage of the apprenticeship model. And so many of our grantees are in insurance, healthcare, cybersecurity. By the way, those 5.4 million job openings, roughly 1/10 are in the IT space. And so I spend time in Philadelphia with kids in the public school system who are really good with gadgets. You know, when my iPhone goes, what do I go to? I don't call Apple. I go to my 13-year-old, you know, because he knows more about this than anyone. And so we take that fluency that young people have with gadgets and we translate it through apprenticeship, the earn while you learn model, into a middle-class job and a career pathway. Some of them go all the way through 4-year higher ed. Others don't, because the vast majority of jobs in the world of IT are actually not requiring a college degree. I spent time in rural Kentucky with a company called BitSource. BitSource took a number of folks, all of whom had the following in common. They were coal miners who lost their job. And those jobs, in all likelihood, aren't coming back. And you know what they did? They went from coal to code. And they're now all writing code. And one of the guys told me when I was there, you know what, Tom? Last Friday, my old job called me. They wanted me back at the coal mine. I told them, thanks, but no thanks, because I have a future here. People are resilient. Montanans are resilient. Folks in Kentucky and West Virginia are resilient. And you are providing them with that pathway to upward mobility. Apprenticeship does it. We're doing it. You know, I refer to the DOL as Match.com. You know, we match job seekers who want to punch their ticket to the middle class with employers who want to grow their business. And the secret sauce is in this room. Educators, mentors, folks who help them move forward. And our partnership is indispensable in those efforts. And so I'm very proud of the work we're doing. We've got tremendous opportunity ahead of us, but we still have more work to do. And we have more work. And you know, I would be remiss as the parent of a kid in college and another kid soon to be in college and as a former professor in college if I didn't talk about, you know, the other aspects of our work, because you'd think that the labor secretary is only going to focus on you know, the job training part. But I understand, appreciate, and applaud the role and efforts that higher ed plays in building democracy, in building participants in democracy, in building leaders in democracy. I remember, you know, I was a kid, I was Jesuit educated, I went to an all-boys high school. We were the diversity in my neighborhood growing up. And I go to Brown University, and my mentor was an Orthodox Jew from New York, close friend for the rest of my life. He changed my life. And he taught me about leadership. He taught me so many things. That's what college is about. It's about not only what you learn in calculus, but it's about the wisdom that you gain outside the classroom, the wisdom that comes from dealing with life's ups and downs, the wisdom that comes from meeting people who are different. I've learned to embrace diversity. I say to my kids, we tolerate Brussels sprouts. We embrace diversity. And that's what college taught me. That's what higher ed is all about. And that's what you do so well. And diversity is broadly defined. It's not simply racial and ethnic. So many people who are coming here, and this is one of your many strengths, President, are first generation college. And that in and of itself is remarkable. And I've also learned that kids who are going to college for the first time, they need to have those supports. You look at the research and the correlation, not simply correlation, but the causal link between folks who have a mentor in college and success in life is overwhelming. I know that because Ed Beiser was my mentor. Couldn't been more different in terms of his upbringing, but our values were so aligned, and he taught me so much. And that's why I keep looking at the administrators here, because, you know, you are the spine of this institution, and you are really moving forward. And we need to understand that there will always be a role for liberal arts education in this country. Some of the most dynamic leaders in our nation's history draw on their liberal arts education to make an impact in this world. I have a friend whose uncle was the former commandant of the Marine Corps. His name was Charles Krulak. He studied philosophy at the Naval Academy. And while he was commandant, he required every officer to read Sun Tzu's The Art of War, which is a 2,500-year-old Chinese book on strategy. And when he retired, he later served as the president of Birmingham Southern College, where he described his job as helping talented individuals grow mentally, morally, and physically and reach their full potential and thereby become difference makers to our nation and the world. It was his power to apply his skills in a variety of settings that made him so effective. And he made it his mission to share it with younger folks. It wasn't just the Marines under General Krulak, Commandant Krulak's leadership, that understood the value of liberal arts. As The Atlantic reported earlier this month, you can major in philosophy at West Point. The Culinary Institute of America requires courses in sociology, psychology, and languages. The Associate Dean for Culinary Science said, without a liberal arts education, the Institute's students would definitely have technical skills. They could make a croissant, and it would be exquisite, but there's a difference between knowing how to do something and understanding what's happening. These schools recognize that employers are looking for agile thinkers who can connect the dots. That's why they made the smart decision to keep them at the heart of their curriculum. And it's true no matter if you're learning about croissants, criminology, coding, or the classics. To make a big impact in the world, you have to master the technical skills, and I think you have to know why it matters. And, you know, the critical thinking is what allows you to think across disciplines. The critical thinking I learned in undergrad was what has allowed me to reinvent myself every so often for the new jobs that we have. And we have no shortage of bigger and more complicated challenges in our nation. Our country and our economy are at a crossroads. On the one hand, we have the wind at our back, as I've described. But on the other hand, we have to be frank. We have an economy that's out of balance, and the fruits of the recovery are not fairly distributed. With huge opportunity gaps and vast income inequality, so many working people are taking it on the chin. There's no dignity to a 50-hour work week when you got to get your food at the food pantry. No matter how they work, so many people are still struggling to get by, let alone get ahead. They don't feel like they have a voice in their workplace. More than ever, we need people who can see that something is wrong or unfair, people who can see around corners. A couple weeks ago, the president hosted a first-of-its-kind event at the White House called a Summit on Worker Voice, where we frankly had a discussion of these questions. And we met a number of remarkable people, workers, employers, who talked about their struggles and triumphs, banding together to bring changes to their workplaces, improving their lot in life, and strengthening their employer's bottom line. And it was a remarkable day for a number of reasons. We had incredibly respectful discourse, which is sadly remarkable in Washington, D.C. And, you know, it was about the president and other folks in the administration asking questions rather than providing answers. It was really a Socratic exercise like the one you have in classrooms right here on campus. And indeed, you know, there's no one fix to these issues. These are the abiding challenges of our time. But it's so important for people to engage. And that is why your role is timeless. Your role is so important. Our democracy depends on your being able to do all this. And we have to continue these efforts. I asked the president this morning, you know, what is this about? What are the most important work streams that flow from this? And he said, you know, we have to build engaged communities. We have to make sure we prepare people for the jobs of tomorrow. And we have to continue our mission of producing tomorrow's leaders. And I'm here to say you can do all of those and then some. And you can do all of those and then some if you continue to be good listeners. You can do all of those and then some if you remember some of the basic principles of effective workforce development and effective leadership, which is building partnerships, taking individuals where we find them. I meet people who have a college degree and lost their job in the Great Recession because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. I meet others who are coming out of prison. They've got talent too. They need a second chance. I meet veterans coming out who have PTSD. They've got talent and they simply need a chance. And when we do all of this, when we understand, I meet moms who have responsibilities at home and they need help and they can't follow that linear path. My mother couldn't follow that linear path. And that is what this conversation is about today, because we need to continue to lead. You are leading. I know your president has been leading on so many issues. And I leave you with this. I met a guy named Randy Lewis, one of my favorite people. Randy is a retired senior executive at Walgreens. Randy is also the father of a son with autism. And the privilege of raising that child and learning from that child taught him that we all too frequently focus on the first 3 words of that word disability and not enough on the last 7 letters of that word. And so he transformed the business model at Walgreens. And I visited one of their distribution centers in Connecticut, where they distribute all the Walgreens products to stores from Maine to Baltimore. And 40% of their employees are people with disabilities, 40. They're working side by side with everyone else. And they're making the same amount of money. They've got career glide path. And, you know, Randy said to me, you know, Tom, you and I, we may be playing different instruments, but we're in the same orchestra. And you know what? It's the orchestra of opportunity when you think about it. And you're in that orchestra as well. And what we have to do today, tomorrow and beyond, is make sure that we're bringing more people into that orchestra. Because you have enviable challenges here in Montana. You have a worker shortage. That's a challenge. It's a significant challenge. But I'm telling you, it's an enviable challenge. Take my word for it. And you can deal with it as long as you apply those principles. And at the same time that you're dealing with that, we can provide opportunities for people living on reservations who have been so marginalized for so long. The engine of upward mobility, the engine of higher education can be that engine of opportunity for those communities who have been so disenfranchised for so long. And so we can build this orchestra of opportunity, and I appreciate your enthusiasm because you know what? You've got incredible vision in this room. You've got the right players in this room, business leaders, community leaders, nonprofit leaders, faith leaders, educators. You've got all the keys, political leaders. You've got Main Street Montana. That's about the values of bringing everyone together. You understand that we work best in Montana and in America when we field a full team. You understand that it's not simply about making sure people have the skills for today's job, but they have the alacrity and the deftness for tomorrow's jobs. Because, you know, today it's the cloud. In 5 years, the cloud's going to look like the abacus. And so that's true. And so if we're not ready for that, and you're not preparing students with the basic competencies to succeed tomorrow, then we're not going to make it. We know what the challenges are. And one of the challenges here is to scale the many best practices that I see in Montana. You have a lot of the building blocks there. And one of the building blocks you have is a willingness to look yourself in the mirror and say, I'm doing well here, but I'm not doing very well there. Humility is in short supply in Washington. It is not in short supply in this room. And that is going to enable you to build an orchestra of opportunity that will enable this state and this country, this community, to thrive. That's what it's about. When we reject these false choices, when we look ourselves in the mirror and have a capacity for growth, and I look at the administrators and I'm going to present a challenge to you. I know that things have been done this way for a while, but you know what? Some of the things are going to need to be done differently to respond to the challenges of tomorrow. And that doesn't mean we abandon some of the timeless principles of the importance of liberal arts education. But what that means is that we have to adjust to the realities of today and tweak what we're doing so that we can be that university that for 113 years, I believe, or so, has been, really an anchor for this state. And I'm confident in 113 years from now, it will still be an anchor. I'm equally confident none of us will be here for that 113th from now. So thank you so much. And this is a great conference. You have a great president, and you have a great community. And it's an honor for me to be part of it. And I'm happy to take a few questions before we move on.
I want to say thanks to Secretary Perez. I so admire your energy and your enthusiasm for America. It comes through loud and clear, but also for higher education and now for this university. We're so fortunate to have you here with us today and fortunate to have you in Washington. We will take a question or two, but while you're formulating that, I'm going to ask Rebecca and Nathan and Lieutenant Governor McLean to come forward and just present our speaker with a couple of gifts. So,
Wow.
you want to do that, Rebecca?
Oh, well, thank you so much. I'm very grateful.
Secretary, we have a special gift that we
wow.
want to make sure that you feel welcome to come back. You're now an honorary president.
Well, good. Thank you.
I see a question or two lined up over there. So.
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Secretary. First, my name's Shannon O'Brien, and I have the great honor to serve as Dean of the Missoula College and work very closely with the administration. So thank you for your recognition of the Missoula College and the work that we do, and certainly of President Engstrom and the homework that you did to learn about the what I believe is the good work that we're doing. You talked about, well, first of all, you talked about Brussels sprouts, and if they're prepared well, then maybe they aren't so bad. With the culinary arts program.
I haven't been able to get through that one. I just want to be honest with you.
Roasted with small almonds are really nice. But I would just like to see if you have a sense of your Match.com concept and convincing people and communicating to people the advantage of Match.com or the advantage of signing up or continuing their education and the value of that, and that it really is the equalizer and bringing people to us, whether they are first generation or traditionally underserved in any way, or incumbent workers is one of the tasks that we have as administrators. And if you can speak to that at all, be appreciated.
Well, I mean, the data speaks for itself. The education dividend is undeniable. And you look at the unemployment rate, I have it in my notes here somewhere, the unemployment rate by educational attainment. If you have a bachelor's degree or higher in the U.S., it's 2.5%. Here in Montana, 3.2%. Some college or associate, it's 4.3% nationally, 3.4% here. High school degree, 5.2% nationally, 4.4% in Montana. Less than a high school degree, 7.9% nationally, 17% in Montana. So, I'm a data guy. That's why I carried this with me when I came in here today. If you're wondering why you make a difference, it's here. And I can go over the data about earnings, and the likelihood of earnings. Now, what's interesting now is, with the opportunities in the Bakken Shelf, that's obviously been, an interesting factor here that, has resulted in a number of people making very rational decisions because they can make a lot of money. But now with oil being $40 a gallon, or something like that, $42 a barrel, I should say. I think we're going to see a leveling out, and these numbers over the long haul are really remarkable. So, your work, and one of the things I'm most proud of this president is that he really has lifted up the role of community colleges. You have been unsung heroes for decades, and now you're no longer unsung. Dr. Biden, I travel with her, and it's amazing to go to a community college. She has a full-time load. She is, in addition to being the second lady, she teaches in Fairfax County. And when you sit there in the room, most people don't know that she's actually teaching now. They think she took time off because she's kind of got this other stuff going on. And when they learn that, people are like, you see their, brow furrow, and they're like, you mean you're teaching now? And when we were on the plane back together, I stayed away from her because you know why? She was grading papers. Hand to God. She was grading papers. And so, keep it up. But make sure, the difference between workforce today and workforce 10 years ago is the quality and quantity of partnership between industry and educators. Understanding the competencies that employers need can help inform instructors in curricular design. And I'm a big believer in competency-based learning, and that's somewhat controversial in some corners. But having the competency to do something is kind of a nice thing. And the critique that I hear from, I'm talking about Fortune 100 CEOs of four-year higher ed, is that we haven't talked enough. And if I were thinking about some work streams from this conference, I think it'd be useful to make some house calls, if those haven't already been done, and have conversations. You're doing a remarkable thing called a sector strategy, where you get manufacturing sector, you get the IT sector together, you figure out what their needs are. And sometimes they don't know precisely, and so it can be mutual learning. And I certainly suggest that you continue to engage in those house calls. Yes,
Mr. Secretary, thank you very much for coming. My name is Eric Rose. I work in the Commissioner of Higher Education office in Helena. I have many questions for you, but I'll limit it to just one. I am the head of a bilingual household. My wife is an immigrant. I'm the lead civil rights compliance officer for two-year colleges in the state, and I'm heavily involved with our TAC grants and Main Street, Montana. As you can imagine, I have questions.
You wear a lot of hats.
But my question for you today is this: how do you see your department's role in reshaping Higher Education and Opportunity Act?
One of the things that we have done that I'm excited about is, I'm a big believer that the most vexing challenges confronting our society requires unprecedented levels of interagency collaboration for their sustainable resolution. And so we've done more work. We established a skills cabinet that I chair. And we've, in the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, for instance, now you have to submit your plan jointly. That's a good thing. And it incentivizes other agencies that have equities, like your Human Services Office or your Veterans Office, to also submit a plan jointly with you. On the higher ed front, we did a lot of work. We funded a thing called the Youth Career Connect, which was a $150 million grant to help build new models of 6-year education. So grade 9 to 14, you come out with a free associate's degree. And that was done in partnership with the Department of Education. And it's really premised on the notion that, if we're going to succeed, we need to be starting at birth and understanding, so many young people, by the time they're 5 and they're starting school, they're up against it. You know it from the work that you do. And so we've got to understand that better. So it's not only imploding stovepipes at the higher ed level, but it's engaging folks to have that conversation about early childhood. It's engaging folks to understand the importance of the correlation between kids who take algebra by 8th grade and success later on. There's a lot of data out there that we're trying to use in our DOL programs and in partnership with the Department of Education move forward. And one of the best compliments I've gotten this job was when I was on a visit like this, and a bunch of the local workforce and education folks said, the collaboration that you are demonstrating at a federal level is trickling down to state and local levels, because we were stovepiped because you were stovepiped. And they're right. And so, if we break down those stovepipes and build one big sandbox, I think we do a lot better for a lot more people.
Thank you.
We're going to call it quits there because I know, Mr. Secretary, you have another appointment here in Missoula.
Well, thank you again, and have a great rest of the day.